Next question.
I had a question kind of about the test.
Great.
I scored very differently than like when I've done the Tritype test in the past. When I did the Tritype test, I knew I was an 8 going into it and was just curious about Tritype, and it typed me as an 854. And let's see. So then when I took this test, I was just kind of curious to see if it was different or how it worked. And it typed me as a 1. And then
what was your Tritype? What did it type you as? Was your Tritype?
As a 258, and then suggested that I should be a 6.
Yeah.
And I've been overthinking the questions, or I don't know if the cards were different than last time.
They're served differently. When I designed the cards and then shared them with True Self, temporarily, they shouldn't still be using them. But anyhow, when I shared them with True Self, I had designed the cards to look at the more dominant answer, but the programmer and the other 2 people I was working with decided on their own to give a different point system, and it just ruined the results. But see, they didn't create the test, so they didn't know what I was going for, and that it would never work to give the point system if I didn't determine the point system. About 15 years ago, David and I created a program where you could just take your any style results and dump it into this program, and it would give you your potential instinctual stacking and your Tritype stacking. I got to talk to David about still making that available. We used it personally, but I sat down and took a couple thousand answers where people took the test that we had at the time and the words they used, and then I could find how to rank point-wise on a 5-point system a certain word. Like, for example, the only type that has used the word naive is type 6. And I look at all these tests every day. I look at tests as they come through. I have it on my computer, tests. Now it's filled with tests. So I look at it, but I sat down and deliberately did it and worked out the point system. So if you don't know that word naive is a particular trigger, that immediately suggests type 6, because other defense strategies couldn't tolerate thinking they were naive or gullible. Another word for type 4, for example, is the word crude or gross or unrefined. And that would be under the question, I avoid, and then you fill in the rest. And often the 4s would say people that are crude or unrefined or make bad jokes. And they didn't know, of course, that that's a hallmark answer for a type 4. Especially if they said, I am tasteful anywhere on their questionnaire. And it may be hard to believe, but only type 4 has used the word tasteful in that questionnaire. In fact, I shared my results with Naranjo, and that was in 96. He told me that he'd never really created the full description of each instinct. So he asked me if I would put my paragraph of his teaching into my study book, my Instinctual Subtypes book. And I said, well, wait, you want me to publish something you've never published? And he said, yeah, it may take me a while. And he said that he'd never really taught the instincts completely till that intensive in 1996. But he'd just not noticed this or noticed that, just working with so many people in a SAT group, Seekers After Truth. But he'd never consolidated it until 1996. And so he wanted that information to go out. And there's an article I wrote on that training with Naranjo, if you want to learn more about it. It's in my blog part, Reflections on Type. And it was published by Enneagram Monthly. And Jack Labanuskas and Andrea Isaacs asked Naranjo if he would look at my subtype work, because people really wanted to know more about it at that time in the 90s. And there was very little written on it. And the belief was that it was secondary to your type, but actually is primary. It's more fundamental. And that came out in my studies and in the interviews.